Anthony Palermo from Connect and Go. It's great to see you. It's great to have you here on the Attraction Pros COVID-19 video series. How you holding up?
I'm 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 surviving. Listen, I am so blessed to have this little guest house on my property that I've converted into my office. So I literally get to walk out of the house every day and just get away from the craziness of everyone being home, and it allows me to have a couple of phone calls and everything, and all that's kind of very handy. But yeah, it's adapting. It's going from 100 miles an hour to zero. And that's tough. That's really tough, So
Yeah, yeah. So you actually get to get up, leave your house, and go to work, and then leave work and go back home while still staying at home.
I haven't worn a pair of shoes in 3 weeks. I've been in slippers for 3 weeks. I walk about 12 feet. There are a few trees that are in the way of me walking directly from the kitchen door to the guest house. So I have to walk around those trees. I have to.
Nature hikes daily.
Listen, and those trees are there every day. Even if you get out earlier, the trees are still there. So I have to walk around it, make my way to the door, and every time I do, I take a breath, and then I step in and I start my day. And
Right.
but it's really anyone that's got an opportunity to have a closed space and can just kind of concentrate, it makes it a little bit easier to get through the all the work that still needs to be done. So
Yeah, 100%, 100%. It's too easy to get distracted otherwise.
yeah.
So
How are you guys doing? Has anyone asked you? How are you guys doing?
Thank you for asking. We appreciate it. I think, I'm surviving, like you are. I have a little bit shorter commute from my bedroom to my home office is one doorway. Um, but, Josh and I are kind of in the same boat because we serve the attractions industry that is essentially shut down.
Right.
So we are, just trying to help in any way we can. And, when you say you're surviving, it's a survival instinct to want to keep going and moving forward. So we just try to figure out how do we do that the best way we can.
Yeah. How about you, Josh? You're in your new place. You're in your new dig.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, moved into the condo a few months ago. We're doing some home renovation projects based on some initial issues found in the inspection, and so we haven't even moved into our master bedroom yet. So
Okay.
this basically is the office. You can see these are freshly painted walls, and
Nice.
I'm going with what did you call it, Matt? This like fashionable chic, like people don't hang artwork anymore. They just
They just kind of lean it up against.
Yeah.
Yeah.
put
Very
some
modern.
picture of me and my wife, and there we go. So yeah, but I mean similarly, just trying to basically make the most out of everything that's going on right now and be able to continually push out content for the industry. And we wanted to do this video series to see kind of what everyone else is up to. So you said a second ago that it went from 100 miles an hour to zero. This grinding halt. What does that look like for your business, for your operation, for your staff?
Well, I mean, it starts with 3 weeks ago being at the IAPA leadership in a conference in LA, and walking the site with the VP of operations, walking the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge site with the VP of ops, and all of a sudden, you get back to the hotel and they just announced that they're closing Disneyland, and they're closing that property as well. And so it was just so much going, and there was an energy, this kind of like very kind of uneasy energy in the room where everyone, they had just announced, Trump had just said, no more flights coming in from Europe. So there was all this kind of, this not a panic at all, but very much a kind of like a concern, because no one knows kind of what's next. And it's not like, it's not like we can look to China and say, oh, it's just one more month and then this is going to happen. They reopened and now they're looking to put everyone on lockdown again because there's a second wave. So there's next month, is this going to be a write-off for the rest of the year? And that kind of uncertainty is very, very challenging for people. I'm not even as worried about the kind of the immediate effect and the kind of the everyone going on unemployment and everything that can happen right now. That's terrible. But it's the sitting at home in 3 weeks from now and going, okay, well, is anything going to light up again? And that anxiety that kind of lives with people. And I'm more worried about the kind of the medium term effects of all this, and then the long-term effects of all that, that I think are going to be there. And I hope that we're able to kind of reposition and get people out. But I read that article that you posted, the 68% of people that said that they would quickly return to a leisure property and so on. That's great, but it's like 4 positive sentences amongst a bunch of very kind of scary things where people would say, I don't really want to be in crowds. I don't really want to be around people. And it's been something that we've had the last 2 weeks to kind of be thinking about at Connect and Go. I mean, if you guys know, our business is about 30-40% of our business is large scale events. And then the other 60% is leisure properties. And so the events industry is just completely done. It's just over. Everything is canceled or postponed. There's still a handful of properties that are like, no, we're going to still do it this summer. And I'm like, no, you're not. So, we were doing an Olympic Village activation for Tokyo. That's postponed a year. So there's obviously a lot of uncertainty in the events industry. And that is actually why we were contacted by a logistics innovation institute here in Quebec that reached out and said, look, your technology and its use of a technology of putting a wristband on someone and being able to identify them, have traceability on all the touch points they've had, associating products and packages to those people. Could that be used during the triage process of COVID-19 testing on the front lines of hospitals? And we're like, well, didn't think about it. We didn't think that this was a use of it, but the way you're explaining it, we think absolutely could work, And they're like, what we really need is something low cost, something very easy to deploy, and that doesn't interfere with all the hardware and equipment in a medical environment. Like the defibrillators, and they all have frequencies, and like we can't have active technology or cellular tech. We need to have the most passive technology possible. And so we were approached by this institute and the Ministry of Health to put together a proposal for a solution. And we just, we presented everything this week, and we should hear back. Hopefully, they already responded saying they're going through it to see where they would deploy it. And we're hoping to find out whether we deploy it early next week at different places. And what would happen is basically, as people would get tested, if you tested positive, you would be given a wristband that you could keep on you that would be associated to your test results. But then you would be assigned a room, which would be in a quarantined ward. In that ward, you would have equipment that would be associated to you. And so this way, at the end of the process, they wouldn't use that equipment in a non-coronavirus ward, a non-quarantine ward, as well as the management and the association of all, they call them waste materials, but basically things that they're going to throw out after. Like they're probably going to throw out the linens and the and any kind of garb you're wearing, because they're not going to give that to another patient. Even if they sterilize it and they wash it, they're probably at this point going to dispose of it, but they want to make sure that they've disposed it. So this whole kind of tracking of all the things that are happening, as well as what doctor has seen you, what have they done. And so you can go to our online platform and scan the person's wristband and see all the things that have been done to them in the past couple of days, so that this way you can keep the treatments going and so on. So let's see, guys, like we didn't think, it's not like we went into this going, hey, there's an opportunity to get involved. It wasn't that. It was someone that reached out to us and said, we think your technology is applicable here.
Yeah. So you're using the technology to be able to get the intelligence to the hospitals. Is this about protecting anonymity for the patient themselves, or is it purely being able to kind of assign just every piece of equipment that's kind of been within their vicinity as well?
Yeah, it's a combination of 3-4 things. So it's the identification of the patient and the history of all the treatments that will have been done to them. It's the association of a room and a location that person can go into or out of. It's the association of ventilators that are associated to that patient or to that room or to that ward. So the management of all those levels of access that asset would have. and the traceability, obviously. They want to know in 3 weeks from now, when some people are starting to be cured of the disease, they want to also be able to take a look and go, okay, well, we need these ventilators for someone else now, but who's gone through this, what's happened with them, and so on, so that they can have the traceability of all the products. And then like I said, the waste materials management afterwards. So it's very much it's an operations management system right now for everything that's going on for in a sense, for an event, which is this event, the COVID-19 crisis that's happening is an event within a hospital. So it's actually a hospital within a hospital that they're deploying so that they can keep anyone and everyone that's part of this, aside from people that are coming to have their cancer treatments or anything else that's happening. They don't want to mix anyone in, so it's not like the hospital is completely dedicated to COVID-19. It's literally just a ward, so they want to manage that ward. So.
Mm-hmm. What I think is really fascinating is the ability to take one technology or something that you're doing for a different industry and tweak it a little bit and apply it to what we're doing now. And I'm curious to see what other industries or technologies can do the same thing, right? You hear about this back in the World War I and World War II, where they took different manufacturing facilities and said, we're going to make things for the war now instead of building cars, and those kind of things. So I think
I have a bunch.
Go ahead. No,
I have a bunch of examples, Matt, that I've been watching other entrepreneurs that I know, other companies that I've been watching, and I find some of the things that the people are doing, I find it extraordinary. So I know one company that was supposed to be building the entry tents and the VIP tents for Coachella are making the tents for triage in front of hospitals, and I'm like, brilliant. Like, I mean, great. It's not even about the opportunity from a business standpoint. It's how can we help? I mean, if that can help, it's extraordinary. So I was actually kind of personally a little bit kind of worried that we wouldn't be able to help in some way. I have this saying. I have so many friends that work in this industry. They work in, as an example, for a sports complex or a sports company, and they're like, hey, Anthony, here a pair of shoes this year. And I'm always like, oh, it's amazing. I'm like, I can give you a couple of RFID wristbands if you want them, but I don't know if the kids care about these things. So I always feel like there's not much, besides having access to events and stuff like that and giving people tickets, I don't really have much to offer, because I don't make anything that's kind of, when the kids come to my office, I give them, silicone wristbands. I'm like, go play, there's nothing. They're like, Dad, this doesn't do anything. So I'm kind of happy to see that. I saw another company who one of the, I don't know the size, but let's say a medium size vodka manufacturer here in Montreal who turned all their production towards hand sanitizer. So they're like, we're bottling vodka. We're going to be bottling hand sanitizer for kind of like industrial bulk hand sanitizer in big bottles for 3-4 liter bottles for the healthcare industry. They're like, we're just shipping out bottles now of hand sanitizers. They change the formulas of what it is. And because obviously they use alcohol for the vodka, they're using the alcohol and then just, mixing it with whatever they need to mix it with to make it hand sanitizer and shipping out hand sanitizer. And I'm like, it's pretty extraordinary to see how people have been able to kind of turn it around, have been able to kind of just quickly adapt, So I'm seeing a lot of kind of pretty remarkable things that people are doing, and it's inspiring.
Yeah, it's 100% inspiring. And I keep trying to think what are the overarching tenets of being able to do this and saying okay, we cannot do our core business right now. We are serving an industry that is shut down. So Amusement Advantage, we're a mystery shop company. We have nothing to mystery shop right now. Right. I'm now thinking, what can we do to pivot our business model, not just from a revenue generation standpoint, but just like what you said, how can we help? And a lot of people that are watching this, they might be on the manufacturer supplier side of the industry. They might be on the operator side of the industry. Regardless, we have no guests to be able to serve right now. So there's a lot of businesses that are just trying to make sure they are staying top of mind for their guests to get through this time.
Right.
Is there anything that you can think of or be able to say like this way of thinking will be able to help produce immediate solutions for what we can actually do that is ultra productive today, like what you're doing?
Well, I think that, as soon as you asked that question, I thought of like kind of what happened in the first couple of days, right? So the first couple of days you saw people hoarding toilet paper and doing all these things, like going and just emptying the shelves and so on. And so the first thing that came to mind when I saw that was right away I thought, okay, well, what about the people that I'm the type of guy who actually stocks up way before a pandemic happens. So I literally had like 4 mega packs of Costco toilet paper in my basement. I was full equipped. And so when that happened, I didn't even think about it for a second of saying that I would go do that. Doesn't come naturally to me to worry and kind of like panic buy and that type of stuff. But I thought about the people that were doing it, and then more importantly, about the people that actually need this stuff and can't have access to it. The people that are on the front lines of the crisis don't have time to go to the store and get those things. So I went into my basement and I took a picture of what I had in my basement, and I literally said, I posted on social, I said, if anyone needs this, just let me know and I'll just drop it off at your house. So if anyone that I know or that can hear this, or if you guys know anyone that I said, just let me know and I'll come bring this to anyone. So I think it starts with something that's not necessarily front of mind always. It's about it's about putting others before us and about being compassionate about what's going on. It's like there's so much going on right now with unemployment levels. It's 6 million people applying for unemployment in 1 week. It's not a little thing. It's not like it's not a little bump in the road. It's really like it's a massive crisis that's happening. The entire world is basically coming to a crawl, and or our world, anyways, right? Or very, very much the Western world is coming to a crawl, and that's going to affect a lot of people. So I would say first, let's start with making sure that anyone and everyone that we know is okay, and if they need help, that we help them. We need to make sure that people feel like, at worst comes to worst, they'll get 3 meals a day. Whether it's come to my house and I'll feed you 3 meals, even though we're not allowed to social distance, whatever, but we will find a way to get you 3 meals a day. I think that's number one. Afterwards, what happens is you start to look and you look at your timelines of your projects and you go, none of this is going to be delivered, or none of this is going to open this year. So what are we doing now? And then you start to think about, where can we contribute? Where can we help? And maybe that's helping another business with their supplies and what they can provide, as an example. So that vodka company that's doing hand sanitizers, how can we help them, get through this? And that's one way of thinking. And it's a very kind of utopian way of thinking. We still have to pay our bills, and we still have to, as human beings, we need to feel secure. And so there's no security in what's going on right now. And so that's also a big challenge as well, is like putting our minds to work and actually saying that I'm working on something. So right now, believe me, when this opportunity came and they said, we'd like to, to get you involved, it literally took 1 second and my mind went, okay, we're in mission mode now. This is what we're going to do. We're going to put together a whole kind of detailed analysis of how this can work and what they would need and be ready to pull the trigger as soon as they give us the green light. So there's a sense of purpose came back, by just knowing that we can help. I don't know that we can do, I don't know that we're even going to charge for this service. It literally is just, let's get people back doing something, and feed them. And so that survivalist kind of instinct, I think, comes in and we get back to work. I mean, in this one specific instance.
Yeah. Anthony, I'd love to pivot a little bit and talk about your concerns. And I think there are a lot of people that are concerned about, sort of that midterm and long-term effect, mentally for us. And you just mentioned some really important things like giving people purpose and making sure they have, sort of a higher calling, if you will, to kind of work for. So what are some things that we could be doing now to try to combat that potential mental breakdown, if you will, in the mid to long term that we might be seeing?
Well, I think that, what we've been doing at our company, which I was going to say at our office, but there's nothing going on at our office. But what we've been doing as a company, we've been doing these massive Zoom calls and so on and so forth. And what we've been doing is really starting to think worst case scenarios And when you think about worst case scenarios and you remove emotions from the conversation, and you start to go, okay, well, let's just say all the events are canceled for the next 12 months. No one wants to go to events, and events can't plan it ahead enough. And the ones that did have something and now are bankrupt, or all these things. Let's go worst case scenario. And we start thinking it through and start going, okay, so what business is there? Should we be thinking about diversification into other industries? Should we be thinking about the next pandemic? And when this happens again, how will we, handle it? So it's actually a gift to have a little bit of time to reflect. I mean, we're working through our sales strategy. So me and my colleague Frank have been working through a sales strategy that was this pre-COVID-19 sales strategy for 2020 that we just just rolled from 2019 into 2020. We were going to do more of the same. And we basically said, let's challenge it now. And so we challenged it. We broke it apart. We've been spending like 2 weeks on this. And then we start to go, okay, now let's look at the post-COVID-19 version of this sales strategy. How do we change it up? And so there are angles and layers that you can peel from your business and start to really look at it and go, what is our positioning in all this? And supermarkets are doing really well. So maybe Advantage Pro should be in the supermarket business as well as, in the amusement park business, because they're killing it. Costco's killing it right now. Supermarkets are killing it right now, and they're always going to be okay. So there's something, I think, we talked about this on the last podcast, about the self-serve era and the least amount of frontline staff possible. I think that in 3 months from now, I think my belief is that properties are going to open, but a lot of people are going to be worried to go into those properties. And I think those properties are going to have to do stuff like distance lining the front gates and distance lining the food and beverage areas. I think they're in a sense, they're going to have to. So as an example, when you go to the grocery store now, I'm not sure if it's like that for you guys, but right now they've got masking tape on the floor, and you can stand here and another person stands 6 feet away and another person 6 feet away, and so on and so forth. So I'm already starting to think about like, okay, well, basically what they're saying is they don't want to be too close to people. So how do we start to think about philosophically this guest experience still being a really good guest experience, but not being so close to people? So that means if you buy your ticket, they don't want you, even though there's a screen there, but they don't want you so close to someone because their hands are there and everything. So I'm starting to think these self-serve box office ticketing machines are maybe going to take on, get some traction. I think this year we start to see more people going to the machines, buying their own tickets, self-serve scanning, which we've seen in many places where you can scan a barcode or an RFID wristband on your own and not have someone there with a device. Just removes people from the front lines. I'm not saying that that's what I think is going to be long-term. I think it's going to evolve, but I think short-term we have to be thinking about contactless and we have to be thinking about self-serve. I think it's going to reassure people that there are less chances of potentially catching that second wave or just in germs in general. I think people are really kind of freaked out about germs right now, which we've never really been in the past. I don't know about you guys. I never got home from work and washed my hands when I got home. I washed my hands before I eat, but I didn't necessarily wash my hands when I entered the house. So I think a lot of people are going to be thinking this way. And if you live 3 to 4 months washing your hands and it becomes a habit, I think that habit's going to be a little more ingrained and a little harder to, not necessarily to break, but it's going to become a new thing. So I think the self-serving contactless is going to be what we're, anyways, as a company, what we're going to be considering our focus on over the next couple of months. So.
It'll be interesting to see, what's short term, what's medium term, what's long term. Things you just mentioned there from the purchase standpoint. Yeah, maybe from admissions, like what they're doing in grocery stores right now. I just went to our local grocery store, yesterday. I was standing at the deli counter, and I'm on the mat here while the woman's on the other mat, like standing at the corner. And there's, they've did a really good job of implementing that now into just the layout and the floor plan. And then, that tape that's, marked 6 feet apart from each other when I'm checking out. But then, concerts, festivals, if you're on a lawn somewhere, I mean, how are you gonna do it that way? Theme parks, riding a roller coaster, being in a theater somewhere. Same thing with with anything that I feel like the amount that we can keep people spaced apart only goes up to a certain point, to at which point now everyone's kind of clustered together. But I definitely think that there's probably going to be a lot of solutions that either come out of this or that are at least reinforced. So for instance, Connect and Go with your cashless wristband and being able to just walk around and being able to just kind of
less exchange of money, and less touching people's hands and germs for sure is going to be, I think, ingrained in people's head. I mean, to your point about roller coasters, I mean, they're doing it right now with the flights that are continuing are all spaced. You can't get a seat next to someone else. You have to be the middle aisles are not being sold, and like they're spacing everyone every 2 rows. Why? Because 1, people are fearful. 2, because there's a lot less volume. And so to that point, I think when the parks do reopen, I think everyone should be expecting lower volumes. I mean, there are people like me who are like, can't wait to get out. I'm ready to burst. And so when I leave this place in a month from now or whenever it is, when I get out, I'm gonna be like, I gotta go everywhere. I gotta do everything. But I don't think that's everyone. And I think actually your article that you shared, it talks about that. There are some people, but I think it's in the 20% or lower that are like me, or like, I will do more as soon as I get out, And I think that parks are going to actually have the opportunity, which sounds so unrealistic, to say, hey, you know what, if you're 2 people in a roller coaster, you can sit there and there will be no one behind you. And then the following row will put 2 other people, and the following 2 other rows later will put 2 other people. I think they probably logistically will have the opportunity to do it because the volumes will be lower at the beginning anyways.
Yeah, so that solution could potentially present itself. Like you said, on the airlines, yes, they have the ability to do this because the amount of people flying is a fraction of
87% less right now. Yeah, 87% less people traveling, which is an extraordinary number. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you transfer that over to amusement rides, and yeah, it definitely works when the volume of business is substantially lower. Otherwise, it's obviously an operator's nightmare because so much of throughput and efficiency.
100%, but it's twofold. So the first thing is that I think, to that point, it's showing compassion towards people's concerns.
For sure.
We know you're worried. That's actually why there's so few people that are here right now. And so therefore, we will give you what it is that you want. If more people are there, that means people aren't worried.
Right.
Or are less worried. So if the place is packed, well, I guess no one's worried. I guess we can go back to it being a bit normal. So I think it's going to have a little bit of a kind of it's going to follow, the actual volume of people. And I think also it's going to be at the beginning. I mean, like anything, once you try something and you're like, hey, I didn't get sick, you're going to go back. And then you'll be like, okay, I'm going to do more. And I went out to dinner and everything was okay, and then nothing happened. So, and then after 3 weeks, we're going to, of being out there, we're going to forget about it. 3 weeks, I would say, of being allowed to go out and have, little to no restrictions, I think we're going to really kind of change things. Where are you, Matt? What state are you in?
I'm in North Carolina.
In North Carolina. Are you guys on lockdown where you are?
We are not specifically on lockdown. I'm in a very small town in Western North Carolina. So yeah. I was actually just telling somebody before this call that going out on the streets, which I don't do a lot, but if I do have to go out, I'm actually surprised how many cars are out there. But again, we are in a place where people come to vacation and retire.
Right.
Typically. And so people are coming here and, to see the Blue Ridge Mountains and to see the Biltmore and those type of things and visit Asheville. So people out here, I think, almost naturally feel like it's a healthier place, right? You got the mountain air and all that.
Right.
So we're taking our precautions. Of course, we're washing our hands. We're staying, apart from everybody. But you do see it, like once you get into the supermarket, you definitely see people either turning around and going the other way, like if you're coming toward them in a small aisle, or staying as close to the side as they can. So you're definitely seeing that. The post office has, a screen of plastic
Right.
Between where you would be in the cashier. So you're seeing those kind of things, but I don't think you're seeing, because of the small town, you're not seeing the level I think that you would see in a New York or Chicago or Seattle, where there's been a lot more cases.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for us, that's also a big part of the challenge now. I mean, I think that it very specifically in our province, it's our premier has been handling it different than the prime minister of the country. So the prime minister of the country has been handling it and saying everyone needs to stay home. I mean, his wife had coronavirus, and so he stayed home, and he was really kind of like being very specific. I'm doing this to set the example for other Canadians to say, look, if the prime minister is doing it, then I expect you guys to do it as well. The guy who runs our province a little more hardcore, and he's like, guys, it's not just stay home. It's everything is a penalty if you break the law. You open a store that's non-essential, we're coming for you. It's $6,000. You hang out on the street and you're talking to people, you don't live at the same address, and you're within 6 feet, it's $1,000 fine. So like he's taking it really hardcore, but at the same time, everyone's kind of applauding his leadership, which is that like when times are tough, you got to do this. You got to really kind of be super tough. But that's what's difficult as well about, people will have businesses to run. These are people's livelihoods. And then you're basically saying, hey, I'm making the decision for you that you have to close, that you have to stop making money, that you have to risk everything that you've built for so many years. I'm talking about like the small business owners, but you have to risk everything because of these laws that we're putting into place so that we don't overwhelm the healthcare system. So everything kind of makes sense. It's just, it's not fun. And it's definitely not kind of, it's not encouraging when you look at that and you go, well, if this is what you're saying now, what's going to happen in 2 months from now? So as an example, Toronto has just announced an additional 12-week lockdown. So they've been down for 2.5 weeks, and now it's an additional, that's 3 months. I mean, they're saying the worst so that they can roll it back and look good. But at the end of the day, when you start to think about 3 months, 3.5 months, school year is over. He had vacation plans, forget about it. You can't travel. You can't even go out for your birthday. You can't, it's quite a weird, crazy time we're living in.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
Yeah,
definitely is. Anthony, thanks so much for joining us here. Any final lasting thoughts you'd like to share?
I'm an optimist. Like I kind of always look at things and say, look, if this is what's happening, I think everything is an opportunity. It's going to be a really rough year. We're not going to be unrealistic about it. It's going to be a very, very difficult year for the majority of people. Very few people are going to be like, oh, it was a great year. Most people are going to say it was a very difficult year. But I'm an optimist, and I think like anything, I think these extraordinarily iconic properties and attractions are going to bounce back. They're part of people's lives and the memories that they've created when they were kids. They're going to want to continue to share that with their kids and their families. I think that like we're lucky to be in something that I can't see going away. Like movie theaters, I don't know how well movie theaters are going to do, but attractions, outdoor attractions, even FECs, when it comes to bringing your child somewhere, I think properties like that are always going to bounce back, and I think that we're definitely in a really good industry for a bounce back. So.
Nicely said. Nicely put. Well, Anthony, thanks so much for joining us here on this video series, and please stay safe, stay healthy, and looking forward to staying in touch with you. And again, thanks for sharing that story about being able to pivot your business model, and hopefully that gets a lot of sparks flying with everybody to be able to just help be part of the solution for this.
Thank you guys for having me, but thank you as well for doing this series. And I think it's helping people kind of get through it. And we need content. We need to be distracted by some of the headlines, and this is very helpful. So
thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.